When the bullets are being fired and the bombs are being dropped and everyone is running away, there is a special group of people who run towards the danger, towards the death and the destruction, towards the carnage and the inferno. With what appears to be no regard for their own personal safety, armed only with a camera, a microphone and a fervent desire to expose the realities of conflict. I am, of course, talking about the war correspondents. We're in the midst of a propaganda war, an information or, at times, misinformation war. Both Russia and Ukraine are trying to win that battle, as well as the physical battle, and at times during conflict, both are equally important. It looks exciting, doesn't it? It looks like a rush, and I'm sure it is. But in war zones, people do use real bullets, people use real bombs, people do commit real atrocities, and journalists now these days, are very real targets. Gone are the days of white Land Rovers with press written on the side of them, being able to drive from one front line to the other, at least relatively safe in the knowledge that they would be respected and that they wouldn't be the ones in the firing line. Now, all too often, the opposite is sadly true. I'm sure we all recall the beheadings of various journalists and photographers in the Middle East by ISIS, but recently, and indeed much closer to home, a Sky crew was shot at and indeed hit. The fact is that if these brave souls weren't out there, anything could happen. Their very presence saves lives. If there was no coverage, no chance of accountability, then genocides and war crimes would be even more prolific than they already are. Who would there be to tell the stories of the innocent women and children being massacred on the front line? Who would speak up for the most vulnerable? Who would expose the true horrors of war? But these people are just that, people. Many of them leave behind their own wives, husbands and children. I imagine that's a very difficult thing to come to terms with, possibly more so for their families than for those going out there as correspondents. Can you imagine trying to justify to your wife and young child that you're heading off to a war zone and that you may not come home? Not because you're conscripted into the army, but because that's what you do for work, and let's be honest, possibly as well, because you've got the bug, the war zone bug. And once you're out there, you're in the thick of it. You make your contacts, you run towards the gunfire, and you realise that when you're on your way back, the battle lines have changed and that the safe route that you took there is no longer a safe route back. I reported a bit from the Syrian and Iraqi border, and I have no shame in saying I was absolutely terrified for most of it. And I had an armed guard. Goodness only knows what these people must feel. The proper war correspondents, not just some jumped-up little chancer like me who wants to prove to himself that he could go somewhere a little bit risky and get away with it. No, this lot are the real deal. And it puts it all into perspective. I didn't do a monologue the other day because my train was late. On that very same day, journalists were being shot at and shelled by Russian troops, and they still managed to do their job, didn't they? It's very easy for me to sit here and talk a good game, and to be honest with you, the jury's out on whether or not I do that most days, frankly, but it's dead easy for the usual Westminster types to obsess about Partygate and cheese and wine and stand outside Downing Street and shout things like, "Are you going to resign, Prime Minister?" And then they all pat themselves on the back, don't they? And they think they're worthy and that they're important and that what they do really matters. I'm under no illusions as to where I stand in the grand scheme of things. Compared to the brave men and women who get shot at in the name of journalism, get taken hostage, get killed, who put everything they hold dear to one side in order to go to the front line and report the facts, frankly, I am nothing. I feel embarrassed even being bracketed in the same job description. Journalist. Well, I might be a journalist, I might be a reporter, but those people are heroes. And I want to say thank you. Thank you and Godspeed.